Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike. And the year was 2015, and about a dozen or so people from around the globe were about to make this little trip that not many people do. They were going to visit North Korea. How many people can say they went to North Korea? So, this group, they're going to explore the secretive country that's always up to no good, and it would be an experience to remember. It definitely would be an experience to remember. What followed, and what happened to one member of that group, Otto Warmbier, would be just plain horrifying. Who really knows the truth of what he did? Because it's widely believed he did absolutely nothing wrong, despite what you may have heard, and he ended up suffering a truly disturbing fate because of it. Shit, eh? Now, let's give it a go. Otto Frederick Warmbier was born in Cincinnati, Ohio on December 12, 1994, to parents Cindy and Fred Warmbier, growing up with two younger siblings. Otto did exceedingly well in his academic life, attending Wyoming High School, where he graduated as salutatorian in 2013. That's one less than valedictorian, but nothing to sneeze at. It means he got the second highest academic rank. Fucking nerd. Otto was a pretty well-regarded fella. He was humble and he was popular. For example, one thing he would always do was, telling funny stories to those around him, keeping people's spirits up. A great guy who people knew would have a bright future right ahead of him.
Hello everyone. When I was told that I'd have the honor of speaking at graduation, my first instinct was to find some key words, some intellectual college thesaurus words, and build my speech around those. However, my initial attempt at a treatise on the imminent graduation of the current stratum of Wyoming high school seniors came across as a bit dry and pretentious. So I decided it was probably best if I looked for some help. Surely someone in the past however many years has found the right way to say goodbye to 153 seniors in just a few sentences. No matter where we go or what we do though, we will always have this group here. Even when Wyoming's class of 2013 is a thing of the past, we'll have the support of all of these people around us. We'll have the knowledge we gained as a group, and we'll have the reruns, the memories we've created to be played over and over again. Thank you.
From there, Otto went on to study a double major in commerce and economics at the University of Virginia, where he also did a minor in global sustainability. He also joined a fraternity at the time and was pretty set on following in his father's footsteps, either a banker or a businessman for sure. Now, Otto lived to travel. He spent some time at the London School of Economics. He traveled to Europe. He went to Cuba. He went to Ecuador. He went to Israel as part of Birthright. He was all about traveling. It was his passion. He had a long laundry list of far-flung and interesting places he wanted to visit, with one place in particular being at the tippity top of that list. Otto's love of foreign adventures, it actually took him to Hong Kong in December 2015. The Hong Kong visit was part of a study program over the holidays, and Otto thoroughly enjoyed himself, despite and because of the huge cultural differences. Then, just before the new year, Otto came across Young Pioneer Tours. The company had been founded by two Westerners and offered like-minded young people a rare opportunity to safely visit the most secretive and repressed nation on Earth, North Korea. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how hard it is for a Westerner to enter, or more importantly, to exit North Korea. The Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, to give it its official name. Some sense of humor those lads have. Now, despite what you're probably thinking due to those lads' reputation, they very rarely will do anything to actual tourists. This Young Pioneers group had been traveling here for years and years and years and never had any issues at all. Thousands of people over the years have visited North Korea, tens of thousands, and everyone has had a grand old time. Sure, they do detain people, but they've almost always had a pretty good reason to do so, as you're looking at a huge political, catastrophe, if they were to. Otto had always been fascinated with North Korea, and when you're 22 years old, phrases like destinations your mother would rather you stayed away from, they tend to kind of stick. up here. That was literally the Young Pioneer Tour's slogan, by the way, destinations your mother would rather you stayed away from. They are still going today. If you visit their website, you can book tours to exotic places like Tajikistan, Laos, Ukraine, Fukushima, Belarus, Chechnya. Prices range from $800 to $5,000. So despite all this, the company was assuring their Americans, specifically Americans, that it's very safe. They're very assuring it's very safe to visit, North Korea, so long as you stick to their very strict rules. After putting down a deposit payment of $1,200, Otto and the rest of the Young Pioneers tour group, including about 10 other Americans, departed from Beijing Airport for Pyongyang on December 29, 2015, intending to undertake a 5-day stay over the New Year, which would include joining in on the New Year celebrations. The group were booked into the Yanggakdo International Hotel, the largest operating hotel in North Korea. It's basically where all the tourists are placed at. It's on an island in the middle of the city, and it has a fair few mod cons, a number of restaurants, a pool, sauna, barbers even. Guests have the run of the hotel. Except for one floor. That's floor number 5. Tourists are not allowed to set a single foot on that floor, never mind 2 of them. It doesn't appear as a button in the elevator, though it is technically accessible via the stairwell. People who have snuck onto that floor say it's actually 2 floors, full of painted propaganda on all the walls. And there's myriad locked doors. It's widely believed that on that floor are surveillance rooms for the entire hotel. Behind those locked doors, speakers and screens of each room a tourist is in. Intelligence officials watching each guest's every single move. This is a video taken by an American doctor named Calvin Sun who visited that floor. It's creepy, to say the least. And things got off to a pretty decent start, even though they were, as soon as they set foot in North Korea, they were thoroughly examined by the authorities. I don't know if they went that far. But they were taken to their most definitely bugged rooms and shown around. What do you think? In a sort of creepy, though, eerie foreshadowing, the group were actually taken on an escorted tour to what might just be one of the weirdest tourist attractions I've ever heard of. The USS Pueblo.
First, we look around the ship, and I will tell about the incident on the way to the main building, okay?
The Pueblo was a US Navy spy ship manned by 82 sailors, which was captured by the North Koreans in 1968. During the tour of the ship, the group were all told about how the brave North Koreans captured the ship from the imperial enemy. The 82 American sailors were imprisoned, beaten, and starved for almost a year before they were finally let go.
4 ships started. Chased, encircled, and captured the Pueblo here in this place at first 2 o'clock, 23rd of January.
This experience sort of disturbed Otto quite a bit, but they all kind of just laughed it off, and Otto got the new nickname, the Imperial Enemy, which is what they, called Americans. Now, just like the hotel, everything this group was shown was carefully, snip, carefully curated to only show pure propaganda. Absolutely. Guides were careful to keep group members on very tight leashes, with always half military, half intelligence agency representatives nearby, just in case anybody tried to wander from the designated path and sneak a peek behind that big red curtain. When not partaking in the scheduled, organized activities, group members were confined to the hotel and not permitted to leave without express consent. And I wouldn't do anything without express consent if I was in North Korea. But I mean, it's like you're going on a tour, but you're not going on a tour. It's like being taken to Disneyland and saying, hey, what do you think of America? It's everything. This is just a pure propaganda tour. You're not actually seeing what North Korea is actually like. You're just seeing this weird facade that they're showing you. Basically, it's a big outdoor propaganda museum. But overall, it seemed like Otto was having a good time. Otto was pretty popular in the tour group. Everybody liked him. He got on really, really well, especially with his roommate, an older British fella named Danny Graten. They were like bouncing off each other. They were having a great time. Otto and Danny were the only two solo travelers in the group, so hence why they were roomed together. Worked out well though, they got on great. For New Year's Eve, the group was taken to Kim Il-sung Square in the center of Pyongyang, where there was like thousands and thousands of North Koreans. They were having this big celebration for the New Year, big party. After that, the group went back to the hotel where they just stayed up like drinking all night. More importantly, after they returned to the hotel that night and kept the party going at the hotel bar, no one really noticed that Otto wasn't there. The rest of the group was drinking, doing shots until about 4:30 a.m. So where was Otto? The hotel is big and they sort of had the run of it. Multiple restaurants and bars. It was late. Some people probably returned to their rooms. One thing is for sure though, there was about an hour and a half to 2 hours where no one remembers Otto being there from about 2:30 to 4:30 a.m. Danny returned to the room he shared with Otto then, and Otto was fast asleep. It's entirely possible that Otto simply went to bed before everybody else, hence why nobody remembers seeing him. He just couldn't keep up with the drinking. Or maybe he had another idea. Regardless, the group were up early January 1st, 2016, New Year's Day, for a helicopter tour of Pyongyang.
One more time. Ready? Alright. Ready to throw it at me? 2, 1.
The group all had a good time and were, looking forward to heading home and sort of surprisingly, going to tell everybody how much fun it was. Again, that doesn't sound very North Korean. The group traveled to Pyongyang International Airport on January 2nd, 2016, just getting ready to board a plane to return to Beijing. However, as they were boarding the plane, two North Korean officials came up behind the group, singled out Otto Warmbier, and tapped him on the shoulder. They signaled Otto, "Come with us." And Otto sort of was like, okay, maybe they just need to check his bag again, or he'd left something behind, whatever. And even, Danny Graten, his roommate, joked, "Oh, hey, that's the last we'll ever see of you." And Otto was like, yeah, good one, and followed these two North Korean officials back into, the terminal. Nobody knew what the problem was, even if there was a problem. Everybody was having a great time, they just sort of took it in their stride. They assumed there'd be a slight delay, after which, oh, here comes Otto, he'd rejoin them. However, once everybody had boarded, a North Korean official then came onto the plane and announced, "Otto is very sick and we have taken him to the hospital." That was it. No further explanation. The group was forced then to take off without him. Like a representative from the Young Pioneers tour group would say, no contact with Otto ever again. Folks, we're out here in the summer. It's time to get beach buddy ready. Nope. But there's nothing better than being out from sunup to sundown. You're sitting out there, getting your tan on, sizzle sizzle, listening to the sounds of the summer. What's better than that? Well, one thing actually, doing all of that, but with a pair of Raycon's incredible everyday headphones. Raycon's everyday headphones are the perfect summer accessory, whether you're going hard at the gym, enjoying the sun and taking those work calls outside, or jamming out while barbecuing to your favorite tunes. And they are also incredibly comfortable, which I usually find to be a problem because my head is massive. And they come with Raycon's incredible hybrid active noise cancellation. That is high quality noise cancelling in a pair of headphones that you can get for under $100. That's not a deal, that's a steal. And with features like 40-hour battery life, awareness mode, 360 immersive surround sound, the great gets even greater than great. And Raycons are absolutely perfect when you're going to the beach and you just want to get away from it all on a nice hot summer's day. I can't hear you. Noise cancelling. Raycon. Doesn't get any better than that. So experience premium sound wherever you go. Head on over to buyraycon.com/chapter15 to get 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday headphones. Yeah, you heard me right, but you won't be hearing me because you got noise cancelling headphones on. Once again, head over to buyraycon.com/chapter15 to get 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday headphones. Brought to you by Raycon. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this old video. Now let's get back to it. After Otto was taken away, this is when things get very, very sketchy, because basically all we have to go on is the Korean, state-run news agency, the Korean Central News Agency, KCNA. Basically, we have to, just go on what they tell us what happened, which sort of directly contradicts with what actually probably happened. Now, the US State Department was informed immediately, of course, and it was basically like, oh, fuck! The North Korean government, though, is pretty predictable. It's all like bullshit, tiny balls, saber rattling. They just want to look like tough guys. What they'll probably do is parade Otto out, make him confess to being a spy or some bullshit like that. They'll have some kangaroo court trial, and then, they'll just hold him as a bargaining chip to get some concessions, something or other. However, they had no idea what was actually going on because they had no real intelligence about how North Korea the United States and North Korea have literally no actual direct ties, diplomatically, at all. On Friday, January 22nd, an announcement was made on the KCNA that Otto had been detained because he was, quote, caught committing a hostile act against the state. The lack of information, coupled with the almost cryptic announcement, naturally led to rumors and speculation about what a hostile act actually meant. Was it an act of terrorism? Was Otto, were they accusing Otto of being some international man of mystery? Everybody who actually knew Otto would be like, okay, they can try and accuse him of that. But it's obviously bullshit. Even people who knew Otto, his family, his friends, classmates, other people on the tour would be like, Otto's a very straight-laced guy, no mucking about. He wouldn't do anything against the rules. He was not a rule breaker, one of those sure be grand type of lads at all. He was like, no, this is the rules. He was going to be a banker. Although I don't know if that means he was more likely to stick to the rules or less likely to stick to the rules. But it would take more than 6 weeks to just find out what they were actually accusing him of. So what was Otto's, grand act of subterfuge? Well, he possibly, but very likely didn't, steal a poster. A propaganda poster from the hotel he was staying at. The poster, which probably looked something exactly like this, featured the declaration, "Let's arm ourselves strongly with Kim Jong-il's patriotism." While that might seem ridiculous, because it is, any theft of materials featuring the name or image of the supreme leader, it's real no-no. They take that shit seriously, as stupid as it sounds. Then there was the moment that would be replayed over and over on international news stations. Otto's confession in a press conference on February 29, 2016. In his very public confession, Otto said that he had planned on stealing something, which turned out to be a poster, all along, even long before the trip. According to his definitely not coerced speech, Otto blamed the idea for taking the poster on a Methodist church back in Cincinnati, and also the Z Society, a secret society that operates out of the University of Virginia. He'd been promised membership to the secret society if he stole the darn thing.
반공화국 족대 행위를 감행하다가 족발 체포된 미국 버지니아 종합대학 학생 완비어 오토 프레데리크의 요청에 따른 기자회견을 시작하겠습니다.
First, I would like to thank everyone for coming to the press conference that I eagerly requested to have. I would also like to show my sincere gratitude to the government of the DPR Korea for giving me this opportunity to apologize for my crime, to beg for forgiveness, and to beg for any assistance to save my life. My name is Otto Frederick Warmbier. I am 21 years old. I committed severe crimes against both the people and the government of the DPR Korea. The task was given by the Friendship United Methodist Church. At the encouragement of the Z Society and the connivance of the United States administration, I came to commit this crime task. The aim of this crime was to harm the work ethic and motivation of the Korean people. This was a very foolish aim. Growing up in the United States, I was taught that the DPR Korea is a mysterious, isolated communist nation from education and mass media. This made an innocent-minded, adventurous young man, like myself, want to show my bravery, to improve my reputation, and show a Western victory over the DPR Korea.
The wildest of all claims, though, was that the Church and the Z Society were both affiliated with the mother heckin' CIA. And it was all part of this, international spy plot.
The United States administration already knows about my act through the CIA, which is closely linked to the Z Society, and connived at my crime. I beg for forgiveness, and I beg for help in any way possible to save my life.
Obviously, this was complete bullshit. Why would a church want a... the Z Society, by the way, does exist. It is an actual secret society, but they would say Otto was not a member, nor never had applied to be a member to the secret society, who definitely doesn't have links to the CIA.
After I came to know that all members get high-paying jobs when they graduate, I eagerly wanted to join the Z Society. The Friendship United Methodist Church gave me my crime task, which is closely matched to the United States administration's hostile policy against the DPR Korea, in order to spread Christianity in the DPR Korea and to increase the church's support from the United States administration.
Also was also Jewish, so him stealing a poster for a church, that doesn't quite make sense. Nor does him putting on his quietest boots, best for sneaking. They've got the highest sneak stats. That doesn't, that sounds a bit weird too.
I took many detailed steps to prepare for my crime. I intentionally packed my quietest boots, the best for sneaking. I knew that I would wear them during my crime commitment. I stole street signs for practice. Lastly, I want to clearly state that I was the political victim of the United States' consistent hostile policies against the DPR Korea. On September 23rd, 2015, I was having dinner at my friend Stephen Webb's home with him and his mother, Sharon Webb. Sharon is a deaconess in the Friendship United Methodist Church. Sharon emphasized that her church does not support the government of North Korea and that communism should be ended. She said that communist nations rally around political slogans. She asked me to take an important political slogan from North Korea to be hung in her church as a trophy. She continued to say that by taking this slogan, we would weaken the unity and motivation of the North Korean people and show this country an insult from the West. She knew how desperately I needed a car to drive to my job this summer, so she offered me a used car worth $10,000 if I was successful. And she said if I was detained and not returned, her church would make payment to my mother of $200,000 in a way of a charitable donation. This is the amount that I am expected to pay for my brother and sister's university tuition.
The whole thing was read from a prepared and tightly scripted statement. He was there to, quote, harm the work ethic and motivation of the Korean people and bring home a trophy. It's obviously extremely clear that Otto had been made to practice this speech possibly hundreds of times, and he knew every single question he would receive from reporters, and he did not write this speech.
통신사 기자 유리 시도로브입니다. 당신이 조선에서 감행한 범죄 행위 세부에 대하여 다시 한번 말해 주십시오.
Thank you for your question. I will now explain the details of my crime commitment. On December 27th, 2015, I alone arrived in Beijing and spent 2 days looking around the city. On December 29th, 2015, I met my tour group at the Beijing International Airport.
It's also worth noting that he says he stole the sign from the second floor, not the secretive fifth floor, which was the banned floor. He allegedly stole this from a floor he was perfectly allowed to be on, but in a staff-only area of that floor. After the address, though, there was like a level of relief that Otto was alive and he appeared healthy, both of which, like, they had absolutely no clue about. Maybe he'd just been taken out and shot. You wouldn't know.
I have been given the most humanitarian treatment in a hotel-class guest house with no torture or mental pressure. As you all can see, I am healthy. I made the worst decision of my life and committed a very severe crime against both the people and the government of the DPR Korea. I have been very impressed by the Korean government's humanitarian treatment of severe criminals like myself and of their very fair and square legal procedures in the DPR Korea. Through my tour in this country, I have come to see that reality in the DPR Korea is very different from the state of evils that the West tagged. And I have come to see that the current human rights issues in the DPR Korea, consistently highlighted by the United States administration, is nothing more than an excuse to harm and eventually overthrow the government of the DPR Korea. My dear United States citizens, seeing is believing, as the proverb goes. Please, come to Pyongyang, which one United States citizen long ago called an Eastern Jerusalem. Then you will believe me. I beg for forgiveness. I never should have allowed myself to be allured by the United States administration to commit a crime in this country.
With the United States and North Korea having basically zero diplomatic relations, any kind of meaningful negotiations was basically going to be impossible. The fact is that because North Korea sits under China's umbrella, the states have no leverage and no way to gain access to Otto. A lot of people, though, are trying to figure this situation out without either doing two things. One, they didn't want to escalate this and make it worse. They also didn't want to, delegitimize North Korea's claims. For example, one thing that happened was that Otto's family and friends, they were kind of told Otto Warmbier was Jewish, and they were kind of told, don't mention that he's Jewish. Not because of anything to do with anti-Semitism or whatever. They were told don't bring it up because North Korea was saying he had done this, on the orders of a church. So if they mentioned that Otto was Jewish, it would make North Koreans' claims look kind of stupid. And they didn't want, the North Koreans to look stupid. They could do a good enough job of that by themselves. Despite all of this, nobody had heard or really seen Otto since his confession, and people were just hoping this could all be kind of sorted out pretty quickly. Fred and Cindy Warmbier continued to meet with officials from the administrations, first Obama and then Trump. They also met with several Swedish officials, who acted as intermediaries between the US and North Korea, as the US didn't have any direct line. The fact that everything had to be relayed through a neutral third party meant there was hella delays in trying to get this sorted out. That's even if the North Koreans were ever acting in good faith at all. But basically, the United States would go to Sweden, ask them this, Sweden would, and they would just be stonewalled. More than 2 months on from his initial detention, on March 16, 2016, Otto's trial took place in front of North Korea's Supreme Court. Otto was charged with subversion under Article 60 of North Korea's criminal code. Countries with, functioning legal systems, it can take weeks or longer, to reach a verdict. North Korea, they don't do any of that bullshit. 1 hour. The evidence was as lopsided as it gets. Witnesses were made up entirely of hotel staff and security department officials, and were obviously all on the side of the prosecution. The physical evidence was centered primarily on CCTV footage that looked to have been shot on a potato. The footage showed a vaguely man-shaped entity enter a staff-only area where they were seen removing a poster from a wall and placing it on the ground. Allegedly, that blob was Otto Warmbier, The footage was timestamped 1:57 a.m. The reason for the delay between the crime happening and Otto being arrested was the staff had all gone home, for the celebrations. So they, took them time, and allegedly they could be full sure with those couple of pixels, clear as day that's Otto, and they even recognized him and then followed him to the airport. Mad. One worker would say, they had left for the night, the poster had been on the wall, they came back then later the next day, the poster was on the ground. What's this all about? See, that's the thing. He didn't do it, I don't think so, but he didn't even steal the poster. What happened was somebody came in, took the poster off the wall, and laid it on the ground. That was it. Didn't even take it. It doesn't make sense. Any of this, none of this makes sense. In Otto's confession, the reason he would say he hadn't actually taken the poster was that he realized it was so big. So why even take it off the wall then? You can see the size of it on the wall. Why even remove it? Nothing makes sense. If it was too big, why just leave it on the floor? Why not just put it back? Given the way things had gone so far, no one was expecting a suspended sentence or a slap on the wrist. But compared to what was expected, the sentence handed out was still considered to be far more harsh than even the worst predictions. Otto was given 15 years in prison with hard labor.
How I was used and manipulated. Please, act to save me. Please save my life. Please think of my family. I'm the oldest son in my family.
For a long year and a half, that was it. The last footage they have of Otto was him being dragged off and nobody heard anything. The circles of diplomacy were still going away in the background, but they were just being stonewalled the entire time. Nobody knew what would become of Otto Warmbier. So we can sort of hazard a guess, what most likely would have happened to Otto as a prisoner in North Korea. Well, likely after he was taken out of, the line of people getting ready to board the plane, he was blindfolded, placed in a car, and driven back to Pyongyang. There, according to other people who have been held by North Koreans, he was held in a guest house behind a restaurant downtown city. Held there in this green-tiled building for days and days at a time, being interrogated every single day for up to 15 hours a day. Everything then they extracted from him would be used in that confession, hence why they were able to put some truths in his, alleged confession. Allegedly, the Warmbier family were struggling financially at the time, and Otto did need a car, but mostly it was a sprinkle of truth on a desert of bullshit. Like the Z Society. I mean, Otto was never a part of it, but he would have been able to say, oh, there is this society, and then they would just sprinkle that in there. They would never actually physically, beat him to a pulp or anything. North Korea doesn't really use physical torture on its foreign prisoners. Not beating torture anyway. It's more like sitting in a room with some stone-faced goon asking you the same question 50 million times, like 1984 psychological torture. Being sentenced to hard labor, though, to a hard labor camp, most definitely torture. They truly mean it. People would die constantly. There are stories of cannibalism from these. You would eat mice and rats. You could be forced to be, digging or sent to coal mines in these incredibly claustrophobic conditions. Oh, you would definitely probably die if you were sent to one of them in a disturbing way. These places are hell on earth. At all times, prisoners are subjected to the worst depravities possible by the prison guards, all the while being forced to do intense manual labor at the edge of starvation. These camps are for enemies of the state, which can mean anything from criticisms of the government to simply poor job performance, or, like Otto, stealing property with the supreme leader's name on it. And of course, collective punishment is the name of the game in this region. So it's not just you being punished, it's your parents, your children, your neighbors, they're all coming with you. It seems that today there are 6 political prisoner camps still active, we know this from satellite images, each holding thousands of prisoners, though that number can go up or down as public executions are daily. Even if not publicly executed, prisoners don't tend to last long, either dying in the mines, of starvation, or simply being crippled from the abuse. People get tortured to death there willy-nilly. But who knows what really happened to Otto after that, because when he was finally seen again, he was definitely not the same person. And the truly disturbing thing about this story is nobody knows why. Otto had been held for 17 months before he finally arrived back in the United States. When he did, his condition was about as bad as possible. Otto was medically evacuated from the Pyongyang Friendship Hospital to Cincinnati, arriving on the evening of June 13, 2017. North Koreans just decided, shortly after Trump got into power, send him home. In fact, there was even talks they were going to send him back earlier, January, February of 2017, but there was that little old story of the assassination of Kim Jong-un's brother at the airport in Malaysia. I covered that story before, go check it out. So that kind of scuppered talks for just like a little bit. So now, though, they were sending him home, or what was left of him. Otto was accompanied by Joseph Yun, a State Department Special Representative, and also Michael Fluckiger, an American emergency doctor, while he was flown to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. He was a very different man from, who the people saw crying on TV when he was taken off that plane. Otto was in a persistent vegetative state. His eyes were pinned wide open. He had to be strapped to the gurney because his arms and legs were just flailing everywhere and he was like screaming. But he couldn't talk. He was blind and he was deaf. He had to be changed. He couldn't use the toilet by himself. When he arrived back, Otto was met by his family. His sister reportedly ran crying from the plane after boarding and seeing the state he was in. This formerly strong, athletic, and quick-witted fella was now something completely different. His teeth were rearranged. His hair was completely buzzed off, and his arms and legs were deformed. Dr. Fluckiger said that when he met Otto at the North Korean hospital, the North Koreans had asked him to sign a report that stated explicitly that Otto's care had been exemplary. Now, Dr. Fluckiger would say he would have signed that regardless of what kind of care they were giving him, because he knew he had to get Otto back. But he said that in the hospital, it seemed like they had actually been taking pretty good care of him. It's what led to him being in the hospital. That's the horrifying part. It is also worth noting that a number of doctors in the US have disputed the condition he was returned in, saying his teeth looked fine. His arms and legs were okay, not like his father said. Others, including his own dentist, back in Ohio, said no, though. He was messed up. He had Otto's dental records from only a couple of years ago, and his teeth did not look the same.
We heard this howling, involuntary, inhuman sound. We weren't really certain what it was. We climbed to the top of the steps and we looked in, and Otto was on the stretcher across in the plane, and he was jerking violently, making these inhuman sounds.
They say it was obvious their son had been tortured by the North Koreans.
Otto had a shaved head. He had a feeding tube coming out of his nose. He was staring blankly into space, jerking violently. He was blind. He was deaf. As we looked at him and tried to comfort him, it looked like someone had taken a pair of pliers and rearranged his bottom teeth.
The medical explanation is that Otto suffered some kind of cardio-neurological event that then led to severe neurological damage. According to Joseph Yun, in a meeting on June 6, 2017, a week before Otto was released, his North Korean counterpart told him that Otto had contracted foodborne botulism not long after he began serving his sentence. The North Koreans also said that he had fallen into a coma after taking a sleeping tablet, but that this was all the result of foodborne botulism, which is like kind of bacteria you can get from food. It's, extremely highly toxic. It's pretty rare, especially in the West, but infection begins with like mild symptoms, trouble swallowing, blurred, double vision, dry mouth, facial swelling, but it progresses, and it progresses pretty quickly. The sufferer can have serious breathing issues, nausea, vomiting, pains, and then finally, paralysis. If untreated, it's fatal, and even with the treatment, the prognosis isn't guaranteed to be positive. The damage can be lifelong if you get this. As I said, it's pretty rare, but that's what the North Koreans were saying. He had gotten that. He'd eaten some food that had this bacteria, and voila. However, when the doctors in the US, back at the hospital in Cincinnati, began to examine him, They found no evidence of what they said caused this. There was no evidence of botulism in his system. They had done something else to him.
Doctors ran tests to see if he had botulism, as the North Koreans claimed he had, leading to his condition.
Those tests did not reveal any evidence of active or chronic denervation, nor any repetitive stimulation that would suggest active botulism at this time.
Still, no idea what exactly the North Koreans did to Warmbier tonight. His family just making sure he is comfortable.
I'm just tremendously proud of Otto. His spirit is with us.
We have no certain or verifiable knowledge of the cause or circumstances of his neurological injury.
Otto had extensive loss of brain tissue. Parts of his brain were simply not there. But nobody could say what had happened to him. Like, they were thinking, okay, from the way he's in, the most kind of obvious explanation would be head trauma, severe head trauma. They'd, beaten him, tortured him, whatever. They could find no evidence of any trauma, no evidence of healing injuries, fractures that had healed, nothing like that. They could find no evidence of what could have caused this. Like, parts of his body were severely deformed, but part of that could just be, I don't know, him doing it to himself, or different, when he was in the hospital, different treatments they tried. It was extremely disturbing, because things were done to him, but there was no evidence of things being done to him. There was just the results of things being done to him. And allegedly he was like this since about a month after he was convicted. Otto never returned to consciousness, and on June 19th, 2017, when he was just 22 years old, at the behest of his parents, Otto's feeding tube was removed, and he passed away in a Cincinnati hospital. His family didn't want an autopsy done, but the lack of autopsy meant no exact trigger for his condition could be found, but they did allow non-invasive scans to be performed. Now, the most probable cause of the event, as I said, would be some kind of head injury, but scans revealed there were no signs of a head injury. They just showed that he had a severe, loss of mass of his brain that had led to this, but what had caused that? We still do not know to this day what they did to him. And what exactly happened in that North Korean hotel that night.
Otto Warmbier passed away less than a week since North Korea released him from detainment. Pyongyang officials say the American student's death is a mystery to them as well. They've also denied accusations that Warmbier's brain injuries were from torture and beatings during captivity.
It's safe to say we will never know for sure. I mean, just either Otto is guilty and he did steal the poster, or take the poster off the wall and put it on the ground and then walk away, which I don't think happened. Or this is all a setup by the North Koreans. There was a 2-hour window that night, which was when the poster removed, and nobody could account for Otto's whereabouts. Nobody knew where Otto was for about 2 hours. Danny Graten, his roommate, though, would say he got back to the hotel room they shared at about 4:30 a.m. and he saw Otto there sawnwood, completely, asleep. They had been drinking that night, of course, and by some accounts heavily. It's entirely possible that Otto went to bed and fell straight asleep. It's also possible that he made a very bad decision. That seemed like a good idea to a drunk Otto, to sneak out and try and steal a poster. One thing though that stuck out to me was when Danny was relaying the story of what happened. When he was being taken away at Pyongyang airport, and Danny joked about never seeing him again, Danny said Otto didn't seem nervous or scared. He, just sort of half laughed and went off with the officers, kind of indicating that Otto didn't think he had done anything wrong, and he didn't know why they were taking him away. Otto was an extremely smart person, second from the top of the class. He knew where he was going. He knew you don't mess around here. He was a well-traveled person. He had a bright future ahead of him. The idea of him doing something so risky, the more you find out about Otto, just seems sort of ludicrous. Likely why there was a delay between his arrest and when they actually showed him on TV and announced the charges was they were probably inventing something. It's also why they likely waited to arrest him till he was leaving the country. Or somebody else moved the poster and then North Korea just decided, he'll do, let's blame him for it. Trying to get some leverage, but instead something else happened to Otto that left him in this state.
He's left an indelible mark on me. He was such a lovely lad. And I've spoken to a lot of people who were on the tour, and we're all absolutely devastated.
Do you believe that that's Otto in that video?
Englishman Danny Graten was the only other single guy on the trip, so he was paired up with Otto.
In my heart of hearts, the guy I knew for 3 or 4 days was not that type of guy. We never mentioned anything remotely like that. We'd already bought some souvenirs.
Interestingly, in 2019, so 2 years after Otto died, a Korean-American businessman would come forward and say he too had been held captive by the North Koreans at the same time Otto was. And he would say that at one time, he had been in a hallway and he had seen a white guy, an American white guy, who he believes was Otto Warmbier, being dragged through a hallway. He didn't obviously speak to him, he just saw this happening while he himself was being held captive. And he said this white guy he saw was completely covered in water, like head to toe, as if he had been waterboarded or water tortured of some kind. Because this Korean-American businessman would say they had done the same to him. Maybe they had been, torturing Otto somehow in a way that wouldn't leave any marks, like water torture, waterboarding, simulated drowning, and that led to him being in that state. In 2018, an inquest resulted in the North Korean state being found liable for Otto's death in a federal court ruling. The court's ruling held the North Koreans responsible. The North Koreans did not contest the allegations nor ruling. Then in April 2019, the North Koreans sent a bill to the US State Department saying the bill was for $2 million and said, well, that's how much it cost us to keep him in a hospital, so pay up. The Warmbier family would say this is kind of like a ransom note after you've given back the dead body. You're not going to get it, and I don't think it's been paid. Something tells me it hasn't been paid. The story of Otto Warmbier, it's horrifying. It's a pure nightmare. It starts out, this young, happy-go-lucky, adventurous fella, and then ending in what is probably one of the most horrifying fates imaginable. I don't think he stole the poster. I absolutely do not think Otto stole the poster. Why would he? And people would say he's just not that kind of guy. Something bad's going to happen to you. Otto was not like that at all. And the fact is, we still do not know what the North Koreans did to Otto Warmbier, but when you see him in the confession and at the trial, he seems like he's in, a lot of distress, as if he knows something bad is going to happen to him.
I beg for forgiveness.
And it did. He was sent back home like a screaming, deaf, blind, flailing, deformed, in a vegetative state. That's truly disturbing. So, sweet dreams. Shinny. And that is the story of Otto Warmbier. Thank you so much for watching, folks. It means the absolute world to me that you're here. Next video will be up when it's up, so take care of each other till then, because you know what? I love you. Mike out.